Do you sometimes feel that your actions bring unexpected consequences? Do you sometimes feel stuck between counteracting goals? If you recognize this, chances are you're experiencing dilemmas. But don't worry, you're not alone. After extensive stakeholder consultation, it's obvious to us that urban dilemmas are a European-wide phenomenon. Dilemmas are in fact part of daily life in an interconnected and hyper-complex environment. In decision-making, dilemmas may appear as a choice between equally desirable or undesirable options. What seem to be straightforward action plans can in practice lead to unexpected outcomes. You know that cities are more than the sum of its parts, and action plans, they don't always work as expected. Urban planners face the challenge of setting strategies towards moving targets. While some targets support each other, others conflict across administrative departments, sectors, and societal groups. In order for us to succeed, we need to prepare urban transition pathways for conflicting targets and wicked issues. Because dilemmas will always be around. So what we can do is to acknowledge them, befriend them, don't fear them, instead ride with them. It is time to join forces in the dilemma-driven approach to urban innovation. Do you want to learn more? Why not join our urban lunch talks and sign up for the policy conference, where we explore urban dilemmas and their consequences on urban transitioning.
Welcome to this Urban Lunch Talk organized by UPI Urban Europe. This is the fourth webinar in a series discussing urban dilemmas. And today we will talk about sustainable land use and urban infrastructures. UPI Urban Europe, it's a European hub for research and innovation to address urban challenges. It's a platform to create, combine, discuss, and make available knowledge and robust evidence for sustainable urban solutions. My name is Cissi Askvall. I'm the Secretary General of VA, Public and Science. It's a Swedish non-profit association aimed at promoting dialogue and openness between the public and scientists. And I will facilitate this webinar together with the co-moderator, Caroline Wrangsten. Would you like to present yourself, Caroline?
Yes, thank you, Cissi, and hello, everyone. Welcome to all of you. I'm Caroline Wrangsten. I'm an urban geographer and I'm part of the JPI Urban Europe team. And I will be working from behind the scenes here today. I just wanted to let you know that we want this to be an interactive session. And as a participant, you can join the talk in several ways. First of all, as you might have noticed, we have a chat forum that's open throughout the whole talk, and you can share your reflections or links or anything you'd like to contribute with. And what is more, you can also ask questions in the Q&A function. You just simply press that icon to do that whenever. And later you will be able to vote in a poll, actually 2 polls today, to share your opinions. You will also have the opportunity to raise your hand and be featured, talking or your reflection or question with everyone. And that was everything, and enjoy the talk.
Great, thank you, Caroline. So the purpose of this series of webinars is to make product and research results available and useful for cities and their stakeholders, and also to help making sense of those urban dilemmas facing European cities. The schedule for today, we will meet with 3 invited panelists. They will share different perspectives on this potential dilemma, combining sustainable land use and urban infrastructures. And they will also give examples that might serve as a starting point for the joint discussion that will follow, which you all can take part in. So let's get started. First of all, we are very curious who has joined the webinar. So could you please tell us who you are by participating in a poll? You will see the question coming up. So, who are you? In which capacity are you participating in the webinar? You're participating in the role of a city official, maybe, a business representative, NGO representative, politician, as an ordinary citizen. We are all citizens, of course, but if it's mainly because you're an ordinary citizen, you can check that bullet. A researcher, a student, or other. And you can also please specify in the chat who you are if you use the bullet other. So I make my choice here. And if you like, you're also very welcome to use the chat function to tell where, in which city or which area are you situated in while you are participating in this webinar. Okay, so let's take a look who has joined. Okay, so we don't have any city officials at all, but we do have quite a few researchers, about 1/3 of the ones participating. And there's also quite a few students and others. Better take a look in the chat. Who are the others? From a funding agency. Right. And then we have several cities. Berlin, Stockholm, someone from the Research Institute in France, Gothenburg, quite a few Swedes, Marne-la-Vallée, and Paris. Interesting. Okay, so now we know who's attending, at least some of us. And before we meet with our invited panelists, I would like to make just a short recap on this dilemma approach that we are using. So a dilemma that can be defined as you have 2 or more competing goals, stakeholder interests, and related strategies that bear the risk of failing to achieve the aims, as implementing one strategy might hamper or prevent the achievement of the other. So do you have any thoughts about this description of a dilemma? You can feel free to comment using the chat function again. And today's dilemma is about the challenge of combining sustainable land use with developing the urban structures needed. And let's discuss this with our panelists. I would first like to introduce you to Mark Dijk, who is a research fellow at the Institute of Integrated Assessment and Sustainable Development at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And you're also a project coordinator for the JPI Urban Europe project called Smarter Labs. Hi, Mark. I was wondering if you can give an example of an urban dilemma you have encountered in Smarter Labs, a dilemma that relates to land use and infrastructure. We can see you. You have a microphone to the lower left of your screen. Maybe you can just unmute it. We still can't hear you. So to the lower left on your screen, there should be a microphone. Yeah. So we start, I think we wait a little, so we sort out the technical problems, and we move forward to Sara Borgström, who's here in Stockholm, Sweden, and you're an associate professor in sustainable urban development, researcher and lecturer at the Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm. Your research focuses on the green infrastructure of a city, like trees and flowers. So what kind of urban dilemma related to land use have you encountered?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to be invited to this webinar. Just to be correct in detail, I'm assistant professor for those that matter. And I'm a specialist in urban landscape governance with a huge interest in green spaces. So the dilemma that I have been thinking a lot about is the concept of multifunctionality, where we have the densifying cities for many reasons, many good reasons, and goals of sustainability. But that leaves us with fewer and fewer places, open spaces where lots of other functions needs to play out. And they get smaller and smaller and less of them in the dense city. And that means that we are raising the goals when it comes to combining things, many different functions. And that with that comes plenty of challenges. First of all, some goes very well together, like recreation and some biodiversity, for example, while others compete, where some people want to have very calm space and other wants to have more activity and interaction with people. So, and with that also comes the power issue. Who have the voice to talk about what functions are important in those open spaces? So for what are them and for whom in the long run? So there comes also the justice perspective. And in addition, when we have these densifying cities, there are some functions that cannot be provided any longer in our cities. The spaces are too small. And they're moved into the peri-urban landscape, meaning that who then can benefit from those functions, who have access to them, then it becomes a matter of mobility and capacity to move around, which is very different among different people. So that's a dilemma and a challenge, how to do multifunctionality in a good way, and where is the limit for this multifunctionality.
Of course. Do you want to show, you sent me one or two slides, maybe we just show them?
Yeah, so as you can see, this is an extreme picture in a way, and it's from an Asian city context, where you can see, okay, the trees are there. There's something that people obviously want to visit, and there are lots of things going on in that place, and there are signposts, and it's very, very crowded. And I mean, the very easy equation here is that the more things we want to have very dense in our cities, the less of these open, maybe more flexible sites we will have, and this might be an extreme way, but a little bit to provoke. What is the future of the not built areas in the very dense cities? Yeah.
And you had another one too.
Yeah. And that goes also for many of these open spaces. They provide us with collective goods. So this is more towards how to maybe think about how we organize things. So the sustainability challenge is very much about collective goods and benefits like health, clean air, water safety, and they do not fit very perfectly in the market-based urban reality that we have today, because who is going to pay for the clean air and the access to green space, and they're not getting the benefit in economic terms. Now the citizens are more and more paying by not getting these goods and services with bad health, bad air conditions, and not being in a water safe situation. And this because the public sector gets less and less resources. So what to say with this slide is that what we need then is to dare ourselves to develop and test new modes of governance, where we invite other actors to be part of taking care, providing and sustaining these collective goods, meaning that we need to open up our idea about just being the public or the private, but what about other actors that can join in this, and what are the forms for that? So these were my two comments to the dilemma discussion so far.
Right, thank you so much. And I think there's really a connection between what you're saying and the next panelist. I would like to introduce you to Igor Kos. And you're a consultant in circular economy in a publicly owned company called We Cycle Institute in Maribor, Slovenia. Before that, you worked in the mayor's cabinet in the municipality of Maribor, working on projects based on a sustainable urban development strategy you developed.
Yes.
So what kind of dilemma regarding land use has Maribor and you as a citizen of Maribor then experienced?
Well, the basic thing that was the question for us is that how we can use already built spaces in the city, which we came up with a quite big number, 9% of the urban space for redevelopment of the city. So there is always this dilemma, should we use already some built environment that is already existing there and has all the infrastructure that is already built to these plots or these areas, or should we turn green areas of the city as a development to the development areas of the city? So we decided to go into the first option, so to already use this. We found out 9% of the urban area of the city as a new development areas. So, but to be able to actually do this, because this is already built up in partial areas, we have to have the system behind to actually deal with all the consequences of redeveloping this. So we have to have a system how to deal with the construction waste, how to deal with the soil, how to deal with all these things, and what can we actually do. So this is the second step. So we decided to do the strategy for transition of the city to circular economy, to kind of build a new business model for the public sector providers that will enable then city to actually do renovation of these degraded areas in the city. So this is kind of a different approach maybe that other cities are taking, but we feel this is something that we are really starting to develop good, and we will also use this in the future projects that will start this year, next year, to show that this is actually possible. And through that, because you are not landfilling any materials anymore, because you are trying to reuse them, you are not degrading other areas that through this process, if you are not having this system behind, you will be doing. So this is the approach that we are developing here. Both strategies, so integrated sustainable urban development strategy and strategy for transition to circular economy, were passed through City Council unanimously, so there was no vote against implementing these strategies. Now we are in the phase out of governance into the implementation, and this is the interesting part. The first part was really exciting because we used also the process of creation of these strategies as an involvement of stakeholders. For example, when we developed the integrated sustainable urban development strategy, we invited public NGOs, university to participate in the group that wrote the strategy for the city. So through that, we kind of assured that there is participation from every stakeholder group in the city. For example, the NGOs actually held the election. So they have candidates on the list and they had election who will participate in the group. And we were lucky to get two good participants from that.
Okay, so citizens could vote for their fellow citizens to take part in those consultations. Not
just consultations, but they were actually co-authors. So they were able, so city allowed them to actually co-wrote the strategy for the city, which is, I think, a bit of the unique approach that we did here, and it was very well accepted. And the result was really good, to be honest. We identified these areas. We did study also gender, age, education for the whole city to see where some groups of people are in majority, where is more elderly, where is less elderly, where is more youthful population. So through that, you can then also see what you want to do in which part of the city, because not everything is for everyone. But if you know here in this area, there is more elderly people, so you can actually get public spaces organized for them. So there is less, let's say, steps or curbs or something, more flat areas so they can walk around more freely. And this is kind of a approach that we are doing, and we think the circular economy provides the answer how to do it.
Yes.
So, sorry, yeah.
I was just wanted to ask Sara if you would like to comment on that example. We are still struggling, I should say, also to get Mark-Dick on board to get his microphone to work, so we can meet him soon too. But Sara?
Okay, thank you, Igor, to get a very fast introduction to your reality and your challenges, but also your successes. I get very curious, obviously, of all the details around it, and you mentioned implementation. But one thing that I think is part of what you're telling us now, and really, really important, whatever challenge or which problem we're addressing, is exactly this, the co-creation. The co-creation, which hopefully can lead to an increased feeling of ownership among more people than the decision makers, but actually the ones that live and do make the city livable, and the ones that are going to use and benefit from whatever we try to design or plan or think about in terms of that. So that's one comment, is that you said that they were co-authors, and I think that's not so usual. There are lots of people that aim for that, but not really getting there, that you can invite people. And of course, there are lots of challenges along with that. So who to invite and who had the capacity to be part of such engagement, and being able to read the material, write the material in that kind of language that is necessary, and being those kind of meetings and adjust to that format and so on and so forth. So there are lots of things that we need to work through there. So that's what I catched at this point. And of course, it's very interesting when you say that the built spaces, and I think we see that in many cities, but not necessarily that the development is taking this holistic perspective that you are describing, but more, okay, here we have a space that is not valued from an ecological or social point now because it's a leftover, so we can just build it, and then you build it based on there's nothing valuable there, meaning in my perspective that is not going to be so much green, it's not so much green structure because it's nothing there, so it's nothing like to preserve. So then there's no incentives for adding green stuff. But yeah, that's the backside of this brownfield development occurring around Europe and elsewhere.
I would like to open up the discussion to everyone participating in the webinar. You're welcome to join the conversation. You can just raise your hand if you wish to be featured on video, or you can send your comments using the chat. There's already one comment in the chat. Can you all see that one about it's not only a problem of growing cities, but it can also be dilemmas connected to shrinking cities on the other hand. We discussed that in a previous webinar a little bit about how to turn the decreasing number of citizens and turn it into an advantage and get cities to grow again. Have you experienced, talking to Igor now, the problem also with shrinking cities in your work as a consultant?
Maribor had actually this phase in the 90s. So when Slovenia split from former Yugoslavia, and hope you are all aware of this process that was ongoing end of the 80s, 90s, we lost approximately 1/5 of the population because all the big companies from the socialist time were not existing anymore. So people didn't have work here and they moved out of the city. So we came down from 125,000 to now more or less between 105, 110,000 inhabitants. And we are stable right now in inhabitants, but the problem is that people are getting older. So there is not so many younger people staying here, although we have university, but they are moving out because there is no opportunities for high-level jobs in the cities, or there are less opportunities, so to say. And this is one part of the problem that we identified, and we are hardly working now to also get companies with the high-end jobs and more skilled jobs into the city. And development of the circular economy is one way to do that, because there are new solutions needed, there are new approaches needed, and of course there are some services that are being then created and provided because the whole city is functioning differently when this is applied. So yes, we did this phase already. We are now stable and okay, now more or less on the same, but we would like to actually get more younger generation into the city, so city is more livable, more lively, and it's not a problem on the cultural side. We have enough events, we have enough festivals. It's really very good region to live in, but if you have to drive, half an hour out of the city to work, it's not what you actually want, and it's not what we want. And this economic development is one of the challenges. It's not so much the urban challenge in this, but in a way, it's a mobility problem, because then people are moving out, coming in, and it's a lot of traveling going on. And if we could keep these jobs here, or we can move them here, then this will decrease to some level. There will still people be going out and in of the city. But what is maybe important to the process of creating those two strategies, we realize that this is not just a thing of the city, but it's basically thing of the functional area of the city. So the neighboring municipalities which coexist with the city, because city provides the major social services like schooling, healthcare, culture, sports, and all this. But we also get other stuff from the neighboring municipalities, like food, like some other things. And we provide also these services, so waste collection, water, construction, and everything to the neighboring municipalities. So this is not just about the city, but we are now talking with everyone around us to create this functional area of the city, which is kind of a new term that is coming up really fast, but it makes all the sense in the world to actually go into that area and start developing the whole thing together. And I think Mark is there.
Yes, now I think Mark has also joined us, or his microphone has started to work. So I'm very happy to introduce Mark Dijk, a research fellow at the Institute of Integrated Assessment and Sustainable Development at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And you're also coordinator for Smarter Labs projects. So let's try again. If you would like to give an example of an urban dilemma you have encountered in Smarter Labs or elsewhere.
Yeah, well, sorry again for not being able to join. I could also not hear you well at some point. Yeah, so in Smart Labs, we have seen that a promising way to address the dilemma that you have already debated between the quality of the living environment and the infrastructures in the city. That a promising way to address it is by sort of living lab approaches. I think many of the elements mentioned by Igor from the parts that I could hear also included ways of working together with citizens. And we've seen that this is a promising way in many cities trying to work together and to learn together on these complex urban problems. But at the same time, a sort of further dilemma that we find is that although these living lab approaches co-create promising solutions, or at least new innovations that could address many of the urban problems, a dilemma is that it is difficult. It is when they are created, it's difficult to actually implement them on a broader scale. So many of the promising innovations have difficulties to move from the small scale of a living lab and actually be implemented at a wider urban scale and have a good impact there. So in our projects, we've been trying to test a new approach that seeks to anticipate many of the constraints to further extend innovations or scale up innovations to the urban level. And these can be, these constraints on further implementing and upscaling innovations may be very practical, or they may be more sort of more difficult to understand. I mean, a practical example is that although in living labs you try to work together with a broad range of actors, for some issues, the actors that you would need to co-create your solution strategy, these actors actually either do not want to join the living lab, or they're not able to join the Living Lab. So these can be practical problems in terms of the skills sometimes needed to work with particular conceptual tools or rhetoric skills or more ICT skills. They may easily sort of exclude certain parts of the urban population. So an experiment needs to be aware of that and needs to seek for a format of the experiments and a toolbox in the experiment that actually is able to include the broad variety of actors that you would need in such a process. Another typical constraint to scale up innovations further is something we called the stickiness of the current urban infrastructure. So although sometimes, for instance, with mobility problems, often related to the widely implemented car infrastructure and car parking infrastructure, often underground in many cities, there are various sort of sustainable mobility innovations developed and experimented with, like shared bicycle schemes or new park and ride transit schemes. But often these new innovations stay rather small because of the, well, we call it, and some authors call it, the obduracy of the established urban infrastructure, because that's not
people
only
tend to use the same kind of transportation as they always did. Is that what you're
well, that's the social
saying?
Sort of the habits and the expectations people have, but it also has an aspect of real hardware infrastructures that as soon as quite some underground parking.
We can't hear you, I'm afraid.
Okay. Is this
it's okay. I can hear you.
Yeah?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So as soon as a number of urban underground parking garages have been implemented, these have quite a level of, say, stability, in the sense that these are long-term financial investments, and these often relate to long-term contracts that urban authorities often have with parking operators. So, I mean, these are facilities that need to continue, and and they simply to some level competes with new innovations, and therefore often outcompete innovations that have been co-created in living lab type approaches.
Sarah, you might like to comment on that.
Yes, I really like to hear you, Mark, and your experiences with the lab or different lab situation. The first thing I want to come back to a little bit is the flexibility. We had the question about the shrinking cities, and then we mentioned the aging population, and then we mentioned the economic shifts, like from larger or small scale economic shifts, and how we can also in that regard shifts our mindset when it comes to really think about cities as something that change constantly, and have that as our first understanding of the city and work towards that. So how to work with something that is constantly changing, as also said in the intro movie here. So that's one thing. The other thing, linking much better to what Mark said, is this with the engagement that we hope the citizen will add to the ambitions and for working towards the sustainable city. Working a lot in Sweden and in Stockholm particularly, we have had decades, nearly a century of very stable political and economic situation, in a sense, lots of bureaucracy, a robustness in a sense. And I would say that the population, maybe a bit harsh, but is a bit laid back and expecting someone else to take care of things. So we have a long journey to do to get this engagement past these driving souls that really engage in everything, but the older people, how can we engage them? And that's the first challenge that we have, and maybe others share that. What we then have also is that how can we then sustain that engagement over time? So it's not just that you mentioned, Mark, this how can we scale up and get this more mainstream, if you like, but how can we also make people, populations continuously engaged and really feel that this is part of their daily life, to engage in a lab or a maker space or a sharing bike shop, something. How can we do that? And that's something I'm struggling with all these green structures that are rolled out throughout our cities as nature-based solution or ecosystem services. And then they go into private ownership, these buildings with green roofs, green facades, green outer environments. And I just wonder who is going to make sure that the functions that we prescribe those structures is going to be sustained over time, given that people doesn't necessarily have the understanding of the intentions or agree with the intentions of having a green roof or so. So I'm really worried about the long-term engagement and how do we keep that up beyond the piloting and experimenting and all the fun with the startup phase. Yes. When it comes to transition.
From your long experience in Slovenia, then Igor, do you have a recipe to how to keep on that long time engagement, getting citizens to continuously give input?
Not really have a recipe, but there is an interesting that this kind of goes together with what we found out when we were writing the roadmap for our government last year, or we started 2017, together with the former commissioner for environment, Janez Potočnik, and others in Slovenia. There is one key component that we found out it's really necessary for this. It's a change of culture. So this cultural change, how people actually, and this will sound very harsh, how people use the city, how we are using our environment, how we are dealing with our environment. Do we respect it or do we just use it? And this change of culture, change of also our habit, which is the hardest thing to do, is a challenge for the future. And we don't have a recipe, but we are working on this constant change. We are trying to also kind of go through the example, so leading by showing or doing it. For example, when we tested some solutions in the waste collection, I did it for 1 year, and then I realized, okay, I can do it. It's not a big deal. There are some just smaller shifts that I have to do, and this is then perfectly working. But if everyone does that, then the system is completely changed and everything is okay in that sense. So we had to really work and show that this is working without any bigger restraints. You know, there was also an experiment that we did in the Mobility Week 3 years ago now. We closed not a long street in the old city center, 250 meters long, but on this street you cannot park, so you can just drive through. And we have maybe between the buildings, because it's basically 500 years old part of the city, 8 meters. So if you add to that pedestrian lane, then you have maybe 3 meters driving line, and you cannot stop there. So through that street, we have approximately on average 18,000 cars per day. And we closed it for 3 weeks to see what will happen to the city mobility and everything else. And there was one really interesting projection that part of the traffic will evaporate. So they will not be shown on the mobility counters that we posted prior and then during the experiment. And people were telling us, you are crazy, this will not work. Actually, it did. So approximately 1/5 of the recorded vehicles evaporated. So they were not shown on any counters. So this was the gap that was created just by altering a bit something, because you close the shortest way and people decided, if I cannot go with car, I will not go with the car around it. So because it's too long, so they started walking, they started using bicycles. So this is also something that tells you because people are spoiled and use cars for a short distance, that they can actually go either with bicycle or with or on foot.
Yes, I would like to ask the three of you if you would say that your home city is good at balancing this functionality versus livability. Just say yes or no. Igor?
Not yet.
Not yet, Sara?
Not yet.
No.
No. Mark?
Also not yet, I'm afraid.
Not yet. Okay, so why did you answer no? Igor?
Well, we realized what we have to do, and we are starting doing it. So we are not there yet, but all the signs are there that people are willing to participate if you explain them properly what this will mean. But also you have to provide the solution. So once you take something away, you have to give something on the other side. It's not complicated, but it's a mind change, it's approach change, and people have to actually also in the city administration, in all the media, they have to be informed correctly why you're doing this, what are benefits. You have to use the measurements, the data, so either the air pollution or the congestions, the waiting periods to get through this area with the car if you choose to go this way. But maybe also you have to provide to build a new road, to actually be able to do something with. So there is a complex solution, but you have to really explain it well, and then there will not be a situation when everybody will agree with what you do. I didn't see this kind of situation. So there will be some people that will still feel that you did something wrong to them because they don't want to do this in the way that is planned. But with the time of change, there comes also the higher percentage of people that are satisfied because they see what you did. For example, in the third week, we had higher approval for this closing of the street than in the first week because people realized this is something really good.
Yeah. So let's move over to Mark. You also said no. So could you develop why?
Yeah, to me, I think many of the unsustainabilities in our city relates to the wide amount of car use at the moment, and there is there are programs to develop alternatives, but at the moment the policy goals do not include decreasing the numbers of cars. So usually sort of the more economic reasons dominate in the trade-offs for policies, and the more sort of quality of the land use are sort of a little bit more secondary. So I think that that can be rebalanced better.
And Sara, you also said no. Why?
It is tricky to get forced to say yes or no. But one thing is that the infrastructure as a physical kind of feature, it's very specialized today, energy, transportation, and plays very well with the sector division of things. So if we talk about energy, we talk about a specific energy and within a specific infrastructure. And that doesn't help us much when we want to work in a more holistic way. It requires a lot in terms of pedagogic communication, interaction, both in structures and processes. And what we then tend to do is to adapt. So we adapt to what we have there instead of more in-depth questioning the infrastructure and how it helps us with the functions that really leads to livability. Instead, we try to adjust them a little bit instead of transforming it, because that seems to be very, very scary and demanding. I have a hard time to see any politicians that dare to do these really big shifts in both the physical infrastructure and also the more cultural, different aspects of the cultural behavior amongst cities. And I think also we have a lack of competence when it comes to the behavior part of the livability of a city, that those that are experts in how humans behave, they are working with other things, helping out selling products in our cities. Yeah. And we need to keep up with that and have that competence also in the urban planning and urban development, to have people that are very, very skilled in supporting people in shift their behavior.
Yeah, so those nudging skills maybe. I really would like to ask everyone who's participating in this webinar this very same question about your home city and the balance between functionality and livability. So how well does your home city balance functionality and livability? So we are talking of the perspective of land use and infrastructures here. So the alternatives would be extremely well, moderately well, very well, moderately well, somewhat, or not at all, or maybe you don't know. So please choose your option and submit. And if you'd like to elaborate, you can do so in the chat function. It's quite interesting to follow a parallel discussion going on in the chat function, so please do that. So let's see if everyone is as negative as the panelists, or you're not so negative that's talking about not yet.
There was an interesting question raised in the chat that I would like to actually kind of throw in. There was a thing that as long as the building new buildings on the outskirts is cheaper than renovating the buildings in the city, this trend will continue. Yes, this is the unfortunate thing that is actually going on, but this is, in my opinion, and some colleagues that work with us on these matters share this. This is because we don't value the natural resources enough. Because once they are gone, and this is the valuation of natural resources is basically really low, and this is why this is then enabled to happen. And if natural places are more valued, then the price of building on these areas will go up, and it will not be commercially so attractive as it's right now. And then things will shift in the other direction. But this is political question. This is not something that this is up to the city or the region to decide, or the state. It depends whoever wants to do that. And this is a space plan that you can actually create for the city, space use plan, where you want what, and this is all the governance aspect of the point. And I hope.
Right. I can see the other panelists are also nodding, so I think they agree with you. I just wanted to show you the results of the poll. I see that almost half of you chose the same option as I did, actually, moderately well. So are you surprised with the results?
No.
Well, yeah, we can use this with nodding and shaking your heads as a very quick version of having a poll.
Of course, you get very curious about what cities had what.
Yes, of course. So if you have any very good example that you would like to put forward, you can please use the chat function. If you think there are really good examples, you can also share links of the interesting examples that you would like to share with the others. I would like to ask you about, the global achievement of the SDGs in the UN Agenda 2030 and the implementation of the Paris Agreement. This raises questions regarding what this socially equitable and climate sensitive urban infrastructure might look like. What do you think? What can it look like? Mark?
Yeah, so I think that the SDGs are a new opportunity to emphasize the integratedness of many of the policies and the fields that people are work on. So in that sense, I think that there will be a benefit of working less with the separate silos and more towards the interlinkages of many things. At the same time, I'm also I see that the challenges of the discussion of making the SDGs more sort of explicit and specific at each of the urban areas. So in some way, I think it will be a sort of new a new focal point of discussions, which will reflect many of the similar patterns of discussions that there are now, but then using labels like the SDGs. So at the one hand, I'm not very hopeful, but at the same time, I think that as I started, I think it's a new thrust for thinking more in an integrated way. So I think it will have some positive effect in that respect.
Yes, I think SDGs are opportunity, as you said, but the problem is that they are not well known in general public. You know, it's more in this some areas they are known, but generally people actually don't know what this is, and we are trying to promote this through linking all our actions to several SDGs. So we are trying to see, for example, as you do in Horizon 2020 proposals, you have to link your actions to the SDGs. I'm really glad that I was able to see this firsthand last year in Montreal on the ICLE conference, where they presented the action plan and the strategy till 21 and 24, and all things were linked to specific SDGs. So there were five areas of city development that they identified as a future going trends of the cities, and they linked all these 5 areas to the SDGs. And this was one of the first organizations that actually did this. We were talking about SDGs in our strategy for circular economy, but we didn't link the actions, to be honest. So this is the update that we are now already preparing, and we will also update our integrated sustainable urban development strategy for the city, linking it to the SDGs. So this is something that we are trying also to promote for the general public, the SDGs, the meaning of SDGs, also about the Paris Agreement. And this is something that we do. I'm also a member of the Urban Agenda Partnership for Circular Economy, where we also link the action plan to the SDGs. So this is something that is really ongoing process for people to realize what SDGs are, what common goals are being there presented, and what we can do to achieve those goals.
So what are your thoughts on this, Sarah?
I agree with both Mark and Igor. I think that the SDG have had many good effects already, given the discussions and dialogues, and having that like a starting point, some stepping stones for more in-depth discussions. Of course, there are lots of things to say about how you work across the different goals and how you address how they overlap in order to work with really strong sustainability. But then you had the questions here regarding what socially equitable and climate sensitive infrastructure might look like.
Right.
And that is, to me, a very tricky question, and I would not dare to like try to answer it. But what I would like to say is that I think in order to be able to answer it, we need to add, linking to what I said previously, more competences and other competences to explore what things would look like. I think we need the creative, not the industry, but creative sector, with all the people that can really creatively think out of the box, very far out of the box. And also, as I said, the experts in behavioral issues that know about how we as humans react to different things. So that's not a response, but a reflection of what is needed to answer that question.
I would also like to ask you, maybe Mark first, the value of applying what we've done through this series of webinars to apply a dilemma-driven approach to these issues. Could you comment on that? Or is it a way forward to deal with those questions?
Well, I do think so, in the sense that it avoids a sort of easy polarization of in the debate of this way, this solution is better than that solution, and it highlights more the sort of the issue above that and the connection between it. So I think it is more a language of connecting different different interests with each other, and so I think it is a useful language to think about the complex urban challenges that we face. Yes.
Anyone?
Not really something to add, actually.
I think, sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, can I add a comment
Please.
on that? So I think these are the things that are needed. I mentioned this, the new modes of governance, having these kind of starting points, as you mentioned, Mark, like a common denominator. We can agree on the dilemma. It's much harder to agree on the ways to handle it, or the goals or the priorities, but at least we can agree that there are dilemmas, there are different interests, there are different power issues, and I think that's a way that we should try. We should try and really investigate what that could add to other tools and ways of dealing with these wicked problems that we have. I link that to, for example, the concept of ecosystem services, which really highlight the dilemmas of wanting everything from nature in one and the same place, and how to deal with that. And we have seen in local and national governmental organizations how they actually can join and have good and very fruitful discussions about joint problems, issues, and also conflicts when they use such concepts like bridging concepts or boundary concepts. And I think starting with dilemmas can be a very good way to try out new ways of governance.
Okay, so let's try to summarize and conclude what has been said now. So I would like to ask three of you panelists, what are your own takeaways from this discussion? And if you have any pieces of advice that you would like to give to civil servants or to urban practitioners of different kinds. So you have just 1 minute each to give us final remarks. And at the same time, I would like to invite you all again to use the chat, tell each other reflections, ideas that have come to your mind, what you will do next. Please share also links or contact information if you wish. So 1 minute each. Mark, would you like to start?
Yes. So what I take from this discussion, well, I think that indeed the sort of dilemma language is a good starting point to address these great urban challenges together. Living labs with multi-actor learning by doing are useful ways to address them, and should be further explored, I think, with many sort of challenges remaining, some of which I think Sarah rightly mentioned, like the sort of the continuity of the idea of in a multi-actor way working on this together seems to be very contrary to the atmosphere of the culture at the day of very low commitments to clubs and organizations, and also people having little time to devote to each other. These are all, I think, at the contrary of what you would need in these multi-actor learning processes. So these are challenges to remain. I don't know how much time I still have.
I think that's your minute, right?
Okay, right. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move over to Igor.
Yeah, well, my takeaways are more or less, I'm just seeing that continuing on the path that we already took, it's the right way to go, to continue with these efforts. It's not easy, to be honest, it's not straightforward. It's a lot of work. You have to engage in a lot of activities, engage a lot of people to get the results. But the first approaches that we did in this sense are showing positive results, and people are willing to engage. We have a very strong NGO sector in Maribor, so they are willing to participate in this co-creation process. And we also had already first participatory budgets in some parts of the city, so people could decide what projects they want to do and in which order they want to do it. So it's a fruitful, but it's a lot of work. It's much more work than just saying this will be done like this and that's it. And people are co-owners of the solutions, and this is something positive for the development of the city. Okay, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah, last but not least.
One concept that I have on my notes here, it's from Igor, and you said that we are actually working with the functional area of the city, and that makes me truly happy and hopeful, because I started off with this multifunctionality as a dilemma, and I think starting to discuss what are the functions that we need for livable cities, and where are those functions provided today, and where do we need to have the provision of those in the future. I think that's a core thing, and the functional area of the city, I think that's a very useful concept that I look forward to think more about. Then in the intro video, they were talking about the hyper complex, and I've been working a lot with complex systems for a very long time. But I'm just thinking about, we really need to force ourselves into hyper complex solutions, and that's something to really bite on. And what are those hyper complex solutions, and how can we do that? I really also want to emphasize the need for diversity when it comes to competences. And final remark is that I'm very happy that we have had this technology working in the sense that we can have 3 persons from different parts of Europe contributing, and hopefully all the others contributing from the chat and elsewhere, in comparison to all these airplanes going into Davos at the moment. I think this is a very good, very practical way of discussing important matters instead of using carbon dioxide to do that, at least less so. So
that's a great final remark. So thanks to our 3 panelists, to the co-moderator, Caroline, and to all your participants for really active contributions. The results will be compiled from this discussion and distributed to you all. On the JPI Urban Europe website, you can also find a recording of the webinar and recordings of the 3 previous ones as well. The chat room will stay open for another 50 minutes if you'd like to share info with each other or ask questions. And I'm sorry to tell you that the series of Urban Lunch Talks has come to an end. And instead, you're welcome to the JPI Urban Europe's policy conference in Brussels to take place on the 12th of February. You can find more info on the website. So thank you so much, everyone, and I hope to meet with you all soon again. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.